OG Anunoby's impact since he's got here. I mean, we've talked about 3-point defense, even though they haven't changed up the philosophy behind it.
Yeah.
Defensive rating has improved. This is something that Tom Thibodeau has been lagging for the past year and a half. Our defense has suffered largely because we're trying to, you have Brunson, you have Julius Randle, so you kind of compensate with your offense, but we always need that wing, right? So he went from having Grimes as defensive stopper to that. Then Grimes shot again to Nick's point, shot wasn't falling. So you've kind of pivoted over to Josh Hart. Josh Hart is Josh Hart. He's a decent defender. He's not what I would call a shutdown defender. And then now to OG Anunoby, a guy who, there's so many benefits to having OG Anunoby on the floor. He's an excellent isolation defender. Laterally, he's not the greatest, but he can stay in front of his man, north to south.
Yeah.
He's disruptive. He can play the passing lanes. He's a guy that he allows Tom Thibodeau to switch, which we've seen over the past few years. Tom Thibodeau is very reluctant on switching.
Yes.
And is it because of the personnel? Even when we had guys like Bullock and Payton, Tom Thibodeau still preached, fighting over screens and whatnot. But you saw in that last game, not in the Mavericks game. What was the game we played before? Was it the Wizards? I'm trying to think. I'm gonna get the clip, but it was one play where you saw the switchability. It may have been the Mavericks, and you saw the full switchability on this play, where you can switch from an OG to a pressure to Chu, who's not the greatest defenders, but you kind of
No.
waste more and more time. You make the ball handlers try to waste a little bit more time off the clock, disrupt them from running the pick and roll or just getting downhill and then kicking it out once the defense collapses in the paint. And as you can see on the chart, on the screen here, you see defensive rating. Since January 1st, we're number one in the league, points per game by the opponents. Number one in the league, rim defense. Even though rim defense, no, actually rim defense was pretty bad. We've gone from
Yeah.
22nd to
It's
second.
not Mitch in there, so
Right. So it's not Mitch, but having a guy like OG to disrupt ball handlers, right? And it takes a lot more pressure of whoever your help defenders are. It takes pressure off of Mitch, Ihart, even poor Jericho Sims, who suffered the little 2 games he played. 3-point defense has vastly been improved, and it's the same defensive principles: protect the paint, and then secondary protect the outside, closeouts and rotations on defense on the outside. But OG Anunoby just affords so much of defense. And you look at the plus minus again. We're first in the league in plus minus at 15.7. So I just want to get your color on OG Anunoby, man. What are you seeing specifically with OG Anunoby, game to game, that's bolstered our defense? Do you see the Luol Deng comparisons? And even on offense, do you think that we could do a little bit more with OG Anunoby? I have some ideas, but I want to get your
so
first.
there's a lot that I gotta go through with OG real quick. First of all, I think the trade was kind of telegraphed by Tibbs and the way he feels. And what I mean by telegraph, it starts off first and foremost with that game that IQ was cooking, right? And Tibbs took him out early. It was a couple of days before the trade,
Mm-hmm.
and you were real disappointed. I can't remember who they played, but I think they ended up losing that game.
We lost. It was the not the Bucks. The Bucks was a way first game where he took him out and he come back in. It was
It
the
may have been, or was it Boston? Either way, it doesn't matter really.
fine,
So
fine.
the big thing was we took it out, took IQ out, and they brought back in RJ. Right? You remember that?
OKC.
OKC. So we lost that game, and Tibbs' words were he wanted more size on the floor, right? And even though RJ is having an improved defensive year, he's not OG defensive type player, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can see the trade off that we just made. We have a guy that can lock down people and is shaving points off the board from the other team, but then also too, we're losing the scoring as we can see what RJ is doing right now in Toronto. We're losing creation points or that third creator, technically third and fourth creator without IQ, without RJ Barrett. So the trade-off is real interesting because now we're actually starting to hold people under 100 points.
Yep.
So whereas we're not, OG is scoring like 5 points less, but he's taking away 10 points away from the opposing team. I think before the trade we were holding people to like 105 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken, or 110, somewhere in that range. So that's close to a 20-point
113.7.
swing, maybe like 10, depending on the team, of course. That's a big swing. Flip back to last year, remember, just to build on your point with the switchability, last year Randall said he liked the switching defense. He was better in a switching defense. Like he could calculate it, because really all it is that if the man has the ball, I follow the guy with the ball and I switch, and I tell the person that was following the person previously to switch with me, and I switch and I take the person, and then I switch off onto the other person. And a lot of people, old school coaches, think that's a lazy man defense, and that's not Tibbs's way. Judge Randall however you want to judge Randall, but Randall is more comfortable with a switchable defense, and he actually looked good in a switch. For me, the size that we have now, pause, is so versatile, because I feel like OG is pretty much the same size as Randall, but probably like 20 pounds less, or maybe 15 pounds less. Like, we could play a different kind of bully ball and still keep the 3-point shot up. Because Randall really, and I'm gonna say this, I know we're talking about OG Anunoby, but it's really his effect. What Randall is doing right now is so impressive, because he's not just changing his game for the third or fourth time since being a part of this team. He's going to the basket. He's being more efficient. He's showing leadership in that sense. And even though, like, we could talk about trading him, we could talk about, like, improving that position or that spot, what he is doing, I wouldn't want to trade or just give up for anyone. He's making it hard for you to just give him. He's so valuable, or the way he's constantly tweaking his game, it's so valuable and malleable to success that it's so hard to give that up, because his contract is not KD contract.
Right.
It'll never be that high, but he's adapting his game, and of course, everything is about the playoffs. What he does in the playoffs matters the most. Same thing with OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby has not played in the playoffs, at least not big numbers like when it comes to their championship year. He was hurt. So, like, what kind of experience he could give, we don't know really. So it's a wait and see. But what he's doing for the team, that Luol Deng effect, yes, sitting in the corner. And someone was saying something about how that's a lot of that's wasted opportunity just sitting in the corner. And I'm like, well, that means the person that's guarding OG Anunoby can't double team at the rim, which spaces the floor for Randall to get to the rim.
Right.
And he's in a way, and this is the thing that I've always said about RJ. This is one thing I said when Kimbo was here. If RJ continued that 40% shooting from the corners, and you had, my imagination at the time was Evan Fournier on the other side of the corners, which he's a good corner 3 shooter. Randall will never get double teamed at the rim. That was my take. Looking at what we're seeing now, Randall getting to the rim, the way we're shooting the 3, the amount of passes and assist percentage that has risen in this team, the OG effect is without holding the ball, he's improved the team. That is big. That's so much intangible, and you can't equate that, bro. I just don't see that. He's not touching the ball, and he's affecting the game.
I agree. It's when we for years, 2019 guys, we have to remember when Randall was here, and we were crying about the awful spacing, the Marcus Morrises, the Bobby Portises, and the Randalls, and to see it night and day. And look, RJ, of course, is my son, but again, OG just doesn't need the ball in his hands. Cuts to the basket. RJ cuts to the basket as well too, but OG and Anunoby, he first came as like, I don't know what I was doing. I was just cutting to the basket,
Yeah.
which bodes well, especially with iHeart, who's now starting,
Yep.
and iHeart's such a
Yep.
willing passer. It creates that much of a fluid offense. If you look at Brunson's numbers, assist numbers, they've shot up since OG's been here. Obviously, without RJ being there, and guys who can actually hit the shot again, opens up space in the paint. I would love for Brunson and Randall to freaking run a little bit more pick and roll, but
Pick and roll, yeah, and they need to do more, like a lot more.
it's just
Look at the Dame Giannis effect and that pick and roll. That pick and roll is damn near unstoppable.
and they finally started doing it because at first they were lost to like